The suffocating heat of Riverside punished the walls of Montero Lobato State School on that March afternoon. Through the open windows on the second floor, the noise of the old fans competed with the sound of traffic from the main avenue. The third-year classroom, students fanned themselves with notebooks while Jennifer Taylor, the new literature teacher, tried to maintain control of the restless class. Jennifer had arrived in Brazil just 6 months ago, the daughter of an American businessman and a Brazilian woman who had returned to the country after a divorce. At 32, with a degree in literature from a prestigious university in New York, she was still struggling to adapt her heavy accent to the fluent Portuguese she had learned from her mother. Her teaching methods, more dynamic and less traditional, had won over most of the students, except for one figure who remained distant at the back of the room. "Let's start analyzing the book I assigned last week," Jennifer announced, adjusting her red-framed glasses. "Please turn to page 42. The sound of backpacks opening and pages being flipped filled the room, except for a silence coming from the last seat by the window. Jennifer looked up, meeting the downcast eyes of Ashley Santos, a girl with curly hair tied up in a messy bun. It wasn't the first time she had noticed the absence of textbooks in the teenager's hands. "Ashley, where's your book?" Jennifer asked, trying to control her growing irritation. The 17-year-old girl simply shook her head, not saying a word. The weeks of accumulated frustration made Jennifer drop the chalk on the table with more force than necessary. "This is the third time in a row you've come without the basic materials for class. We're halfway through the semester, and you still haven't brought a single requested book." Her voice echoed through the room, making all the students turn to observe the situation. "How do you expect to keep up with the lessons like this?" Ashley remained silent, biting her lower lip and scribbling in her worn-out notebook. What irritated Jennifer the most wasn't just the lack of materials, but the apparent indifference of the student. While the other students seemed enthusiastic about the classes, Ashley always maintained a distant expression, as if she were just occupying space. "I'm talking to you, Ashley," Jennifer insisted, crossing her arms. "Do you have any justification for never bringing the books to class?" A heavy silence filled the room. Riley Mendez, Ashley's inseparable friend sitting at the desk next to her, gave her a worried look. Some students in the class began to exchange whispers and muffled giggles. "Miss," said Kevin Oliveira, one of the popular students in the class, "Ashley never cares about class anyway. She only comes to school because she has to." More laughter erupted, now less restrained. Jennifer would normally reprimand this kind of comment, but her frustration with the situation spoke louder. She approached Ashley's desk, stopping a few steps away. "Look, Ashley, we can't keep going like this. Your performance is dropping with every evaluation, and your lack of participation is not only hurting you, but also the progress of the class." Jennifer paused, waiting for some reaction from the girl. "If you're not interested in being here, maybe we should call your guardians for a meeting." It was then that Ashley finally looked up. Her dark brown eyes shone with something Jennifer initially interpreted as defiance, but soon realized was something different, deeper. "You don't need to call anyone, miss," Ashley replied in a low but firm voice. "I am interested. I just don't have the books." "And why not, Ashley?" Jennifer questioned, feeling the gaze of the entire class on them. "The books were listed at the beginning of the semester. Everyone had time to get them." Ashley hesitated, her fingers gripping the pen tightly. Riley made a move to say something, but she stopped him with a subtle gesture. "I can't afford them," she finally said, with a dignity that surprised Jennifer. "What do you mean, can't afford them?" Jennifer asked, her tone now more incredulous than irritated. "The school offers scholarships for textbooks. You could have applied." "I already tried, miss. Twice," Ashley replied, keeping her voice controlled. "They said there were no more spots available for this semester." Jennifer felt a pang of guilt, but years of experience with students who made excuses made her maintain her rigid stance. "Even so, Ashley, you could have come to me," explained the situation earlier. "The class is almost halfway through the semester." It was then that Riley could no longer contain himself. "Ashley has a lot to worry about, miss." His voice came out louder than intended. "Riley, please." Ashley tried to interrupt him, but he had already started. She can't buy the books because the money goes to her. Mom's medicine, Riley blurted out, to the astonishment of the entire class. Her mom has been sick for months, and Ashley works after school to support the house. That's why she sometimes seems tired or distant. The silence that followed was deafening. Jennifer felt her face burn with shame as she processed this information. Ashley, now with a red face and teary eyes, quickly packed her materials into her old backpack. "Excuse me, miss. I need to go to the bathroom," Ashley murmured, standing up and hurriedly leaving the room before Jennifer could react. A feeling of emptiness filled Jennifer's chest. Her judgment had been so hasty, so unfair. The situation that had seemed so clear to her, a disinterested student, now revealed itself as something completely different and much more complex. The faces of the other students reflected a mix of surprise and embarrassment, as if they all shared the guilt for not truly knowing the classmate they saw every day. The teacher looked at the door through which Ashley had left, and then at the silent class. That hot March afternoon had turned into a moment of deep reflection on how appearances could be deceiving, and how the realities of students often remained invisible behind their everyday expressions. Jennifer remained motionless in front of the class, feeling the weight of their gazes on her. Her mind quickly processed everything she had just discovered. Never in her years of teaching had she felt so mistaken in her judgment. "Continue reading up to page 50. I'll check on Ashley," she finally said, gathering the courage to face the mistake she had made. In the empty hallway of the school, the echo of her hurried footsteps accompanied the whirlwind of thoughts invading her mind. How had she not noticed the signs? The constant dark circles under Ashley's eyes, the always simple yet impeccably clean clothes, the lunch she rarely brought. All the clues were there, but Jennifer had chosen to see only what her professional frustration wanted to see. In the girls' bathroom, she found Ashley sitting on the floor, leaning against the cold, tiled wall, hugging her knees. Her eyes were red, but she wasn't crying anymore. She looked exhausted, as if that moment had drained her last reserves of energy. "Can I sit?" Jennifer asked softly. Ashley nodded without looking directly at the teacher. Jennifer slid down the wall to sit beside the student, maintaining a respectful distance. "I'm sorry, Ashley. I was unfair and hasty," Jennifer began, her voice choked. "I had no idea what you were going through." "No one does," Ashley replied, finally looking at the teacher, "and I prefer it that way. I don't want people to feel sorry for me. It's not pity I'm feeling now," Jennifer said sincerely. "It's admiration. You've been facing all of this alone and still haven't missed a single class." A brief silence hung between them before Ashley continued. "My mom, Samantha, always said that education is the only thing no one can take away from you." Her words came out as a whisper. "She was a teacher too, you know, before she got sick." Jennifer felt a lump in her throat. Fate had a cruel sense of irony sometimes. "What's her health condition?" Jennifer asked delicately. "Multiple sclerosis," Ashley replied, pronouncing each syllable as if they were heavy stones. "It started 2 years ago, right after my dad William left us. The symptoms got worse in the last few months, and she can't work anymore. We get some government assistance, but it barely covers the rent for our apartment." Ashley paused, taking a deep breath before continuing. "I work at a cafe after school and on weekends. The money helps with medicine and food, but there's nothing left for books or anything else. I copy the class notes from Riley's notebook to study at home." The tears Jennifer had been trying to hold back finally escaped. This 17-year-old girl carried responsibilities that many adults couldn't handle, and yet she kept fighting, without complaining or looking for shortcuts. "Why didn't you ever tell me this before?" Jennifer asked, discreetly wiping her tears. "I've always been Mrs. Santos's daughter. I grew up hearing that I needed to be an example, never show weakness." Ashley shrugged. "Besides, I've seen how people treat those who have problems. Suddenly you become the poor girl or the girl with the sick mom. I don't want that." Jennifer understood that resistance perfectly. Ashley's pride wasn't arrogance, but a form of protection, a way to keep her identity intact amid the chaos her life had become. When they returned to the classroom, the atmosphere had completely changed. The students, once so loud and carefree, maintained a respectful silence. Riley smiled discreetly at his friend when she returned to her seat. "Class, let's take a break." "From reading," Jennifer announced, placing her own copy of the book on the table. "I want to propose something different today." The curious looks of the students followed her as she walked around the room. "Literature isn't just about reading words on pages. It's about understanding stories," Jennifer continued. "And each of yours carries stories that others don't know. Maybe it's time we start sharing them." In the days that followed, a silent transformation occurred in the third-year class. The students began forming study groups where they shared not only knowledge, but also materials. Kevin Oliveira, who had once mocked Ashley, showed up one day with an extra copy of the literature book. "My cousin finished high school last year and doesn't need this anymore," he said, avoiding direct eye contact with Ashley as he placed the book on her desk. "I thought you could use it." The most significant change, however, came from Brittany Almeida, the daughter of the owner of the largest bookstore in town. After a private conversation with Jennifer, she brought a proposal to the class. "My dad agreed to donate a full set. So I have textbooks for anyone who needs them," she announced during recess. "And he also wants to offer a paid weekend internship at the bookstore. He said he needs someone who really understands books." Ashley, initially resistant to accepting any kind of help, realized that this wasn't charity, but a genuine opportunity. A job at a bookstore would be less exhausting than the cafe and would allow her to be closer to what she loved: books. On a rainy April afternoon, Jennifer decided to visit Ashley's home. The small apartment in the Campos Elíseos neighborhood was on the third floor of a building with no elevator. Despite the limited space and simple furniture, there was something comforting about the home. Old photographs decorated the walls, showing happy moments of a family that had once been complete. Samantha Santos was sitting by the window, watching the rain fall. At 45, her body showed the signs of the disease that was progressively limiting her movements, but her eyes, identical to her daughter's, maintained a lively and intelligent spark. "So you're the famous Miss Jennifer," Samantha said with a warm smile. "Ashley talks a lot about your classes." "I hope it's good things," Jennifer replied, sitting in the chair Ashley had brought from the small kitchen. "She says you teach the way I used to." Samantha's voice carried a mix of pride and nostalgia, with passion. The two women talked like old friends reuniting after years of separation. They shared experiences about teaching, exchanged opinions about books, and inevitably talked about Ashley. "She's extraordinary, Samantha," Jennifer said sincerely. "She has incredible potential. She could easily get a scholarship to any university." "That's always been the dream," Samantha replied, her expression suddenly darkening. "But now, she would never leave me. Not while I'm—" Jennifer understood the pain in those unspoken words. A mother who feared being a burden to her daughter's future, a future that seemed increasingly distant and uncertain. What if there was a way? Jennifer asked, an idea beginning to form in her mind. A way for Ashley to pursue her dreams without having to leave you alone? As the rain continued to fall outside, inside that small apartment, a seed of hope began to sprout. Jennifer didn't know exactly how, but she was determined to find a solution. After all, it wasn't just about helping a talented student overcome financial difficulties. It was about correcting an injustice, about giving Ashley the chance she deserved, the opportunity to write her own story without her mother's chapter having to come to a premature end. That night, when Jennifer returned to her apartment, she couldn't sleep. Her mind buzzed with plans and possibilities. She knew she would need help, that she couldn't solve everything alone. But she also knew that, after learning Ashley's true story, nothing would stop her from trying. The project began as a small idea scribbled in the corner of Jennifer's notebook. As May progressed, it turned into something much bigger than she could have imagined. Ashley's story had touched not only the students in the class, but also other teachers who, upon hearing about the situation, offered to help. "We need a name." "For this," suggested Michael Costa, the math teacher, during an impromptu meeting in the teacher's lounge. something that represents what we're trying to do. How about Open Pages Project? Jennifer proposed, thinking of the books that had started this entire journey. Because we're opening new pages in these students' lives. The first concrete action came from Principal Eliza Thompson, an American who had moved to Brazil 20 years ago. After hearing about Ashley, she decided to review the school's student assistance program. "I discovered we have unused funds from that state government project," Eliza explained, showing Jennifer the documents. "Legally, we can direct that money to textbook scholarships for students in vulnerable situations." "That would help not only Ashley, but other students in the same situation," Jennifer observed, feeling a wave of hope. "Exactly. We've identified at least 12 students who meet the criteria," Eliza smiled, satisfied. "And you, Jennifer, will be the project coordinator." What began as a solution to an individual problem quickly expanded. Brittany fulfilled her promise, convincing her father to donate not only books, but also to provide space in the bookstore for free tutoring sessions on Saturdays. Kevin, surprisingly, became one of the most dedicated tutors, discovering a talent for explaining Brazilian literature that even he didn't know he had. Ashley, initially reluctant to accept help, found in her new job at the bookstore not only financial relief, but also an environment where her love for books could flourish. Working alongside Brittany, an unlikely friendship began to form between the two girls who had once seemed to inhabit completely different worlds. "You know what's most ironic?" Ashley commented one afternoon as they organized a new shipment of books. "I always envied girls like you with perfect families and lives without worries." Brittany stopped what she was doing, her face taking on a serious expression Ashley had never seen before. "Perfect?" she repeated with a bitter laugh. "My parents barely speak to each other anymore. They only stay together because of the image of the perfect family they sell to society. My dad lives at work to avoid facing the fact that his marriage is a farce, and my mum drowns her sorrows in shopping and antidepressants." It was Ashley's turn to be surprised. She had never imagined that behind that facade of perfection could lie so much pain. "I guess we all have our own problems, don't we?" Ashley said softly. "It's just that some are more visible than others." Meanwhile, Jennifer had started the second phase of her plan. With the help of the computer science teacher, Nathan Ribeiro, she created a website for the Open Pages project. The platform served as a meeting point for parents, teachers, and community members willing to contribute time, knowledge, or resources. "The response has been incredible," Nathan commented, showing the website's statistics. "We have doctors, lawyers, engineers, all offering free mentorship to the students. One of the most valuable contacts came through Diana Rodriguez, the mother of a first-year student and a neurologist at the university hospital. Upon hearing about Samantha, she immediately offered to reassess her case. Medicine advances quickly," Diana explained during a coffee with Jennifer. "There are new treatments for multiple sclerosis that can significantly slow the progression of the disease." "But the cost," Jennifer began, knowing the financial reality of Ashley and her mother. "There's a clinical research program at the hospital," Diana interrupted. "Selected patients receive experimental treatment for free. And from what you've told me about her case, Samantha would be an excellent candidate." The news brought a hope that Ashley hadn't allowed herself to feel in years. The treatment wouldn't be a cure. Multiple sclerosis still didn't have one. But it could mean a significant improvement in her mother's quality of life and, more importantly, time. Time to see her daughter grow, graduate, and achieve her dreams. A sunny June afternoon, Jennifer gathered the courage to broach a subject she had been postponing with Ashley: her academic future. "Have you thought about which university you want to apply to?" Jennifer asked casually, as they walked through the school courtyard after classes. Ashley shrugged, a gesture Jennifer now recognized as her way of protecting herself from hopes she feared she couldn't fulfill. "Maybe a technical course here, in Riverside," she replied vaguely. "Something I can do at night after work." "Ashley, you have the potential for so much more," Jennifer insisted. "Your essays are extraordinary. Any literature department would be lucky to have you as a student." The Girl stopped walking, turning to face the teacher. Jennifer, you know that's not possible. Even with the new treatment, my mom still needs me. I can't just leave her alone. What if you didn't have to choose? Jennifer asked, finally revealing the card she had been holding. USP has one of the best literature programs in the country, and it's less than an hour from here. With your grades and your story, you have a great chance of getting a full scholarship. Ashley's eyes widened at the possibility she had never considered. But even so, who would take care of her during the day while I'm at college? Jennifer smiled, pleased to finally share the fruit of weeks of planning. Remember Rachel, the retired nurse, who volunteered for the project? She's been looking for a place to live since she sold her house. The apartment next to yours is for rent, and the price is within her budget. Are you suggesting that Rachel could help take care of your mom in exchange for a reduction in rent? She would have company. Your mom would have qualified assistance, and you could study with the peace of mind of knowing Samantha is in good hands. Silent tears began to stream down Ashley's face. They weren't tears of sadness or frustration, like so many others she had shed over the years, but of something she had almost forgotten how to feel: hope. In the last week of classes before the July break, Montero Lobato State School organized a special ceremony to celebrate the success of the Open Pages project. The auditorium was packed with students, parents, teachers, and community members. On stage, next to Principal Eliza Thompson, were Jennifer and Ashley, chosen to share what the project had meant to them. Jennifer looked out at the audience, recognizing faces that had become familiar over the past few months. Brittany and her father, sitting in the front row. Kevin and Riley, exchanging excited comments about their vacation plans. Diana Rodriguez, who had brought Samantha in her special wheelchair. The transformation was almost palpable. What had started as a painful confrontation in a classroom had expanded to embrace an entire community. When it was her turn to speak, Jennifer felt a lump in her throat. The words she had rehearsed seemed inadequate in the face of the magnitude of what she was experiencing. A few months ago, I made a mistake, she began, deciding to speak from the heart. I judged a student without knowing her story. I thought I knew everything just by looking at the surface. But life teaches us in unexpected ways, and Ashley Santos gave me the greatest lesson I've ever received as an educator. Jennifer paused, looking directly at Ashley, who smiled through her tears. I learned that behind every silence there may be a battle we know nothing about. That each of us carries stories invisible to the eyes of others. And most importantly, that when we allow ourselves to truly see the person next to us, when we extend a hand instead of pointing a finger, we create something powerful. We create community. As Jennifer concluded her speech, a certainty settled in her heart. This wasn't just the story of a teacher who learned to see beyond appearances, or a student who found hope when everything seemed lost. It was the story of how small acts of understanding and generosity could multiply, transforming not only individual lives, but an entire community. And as Ashley stood to take her place at the microphone, Jennifer was absolutely certain that they were just beginning to write the first chapters of a much larger story.